And then in 1985, there was the murder of DEA agent Kiki Camarena, he was actually kidnapped by drug traffickers hired by Mexican politicians.
Yes.
In Mexico.
Yes.
He ended up being interrogated and tortured and ultimately killed.
Yes.
Did you know Kiki at all?
I knew Kiki. I met Kiki, but I didn't work with him. But when he was kidnapped, they brought me into headquarters to work on the desk because we set up a special desk to try to find him. We knew that he was taken. And I must say, every government agency went out of their way to try to find Kiki. I mean, the agency with their satellites, taking pictures of the farm that we thought he might be on. And it was an all-out effort. And finally, when they investigated it, they got to it. And all these years later, they finally got everybody that was involved in it.
Right. And from what I understood, it kind of strained U.S.-Mexican relations over the situation.
Oh, yes. But that's happened so many times. You know, there's so much money to be made.
Right. And just recently, I guess they had actually recaptured one of the drug traffickers involved in that case, Rafael Caro Quintero.
Yes, they did.
Right. He was recaptured in July of this year.
Yeah.
These types of situations where DEA agents get killed and kidnapped and so forth, does it happen very often? I mean, when you're going undercover, you're taking the risk of this happening at any moment.
You know, you have to plan each case. You have to see who you're dealing with. And you have to know everything about them. And if you have a sixth sense, if you feel that something is wrong, you just don't meet with them. And that's how I kept alive, you know, because it would only take one person to tell the Sicilians that I was an agent, and I'd be gone, you know. The same with when I was working on the Colombians. All it would take is and they had the money. They bought judges, they bought cops, you know. So you had to plan ahead. You had to know who you were dealing with. And you sort of had to have like a sixth sense. If something wasn't right, you didn't get involved in it. But I was pretty lucky with the Sicilians for the simple reason I was a cash cow for them. You know, I bought over $1 million worth of heroin from them, so they didn't want anything to happen to me. The Colombians were something else. They'd kill you in a second. And whenever I dealt with the Colombians, you know, I was extra cautious. I remember doing a deal with them. I had an undercover Learjet with 2 DEA agent pilots, and we would fly to Teterboro Airport to a section called Millionaire, and that's where all the private jets came in. And we had a judge in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, who gave us wiretap authorization on 3 cell phones. So when I met the Colombian, we take off from Teterboro and we're flying around, and I says, oh, why don't we land in Harrisburg and have some lunch or something? So we go there, and I'm getting off the plane, and I say to the Colombian, those are 3 new phones, so use any one you want if you have to call your people. And sure as hell he did. And we got a take on where he was calling, you know. But then they wanted to meet me in El Salvador. And in all the countries I've been in, you know, you feel like your life isn't worth a nickel. They'd kill you for a nickel in El Salvador. And so whenever anybody came up to me, they'd say, oh, you know, are you American? And I'd start talking Italian, saying, no, I'm Italian, you know. But again, with the Sicilians, they were one tough group, millions and millions of dollars. And when you say billions, it's the truth. It's the actual truth. People didn't realize the magnitude of it. If you were to tell people, hey, I was involved in one cell that was bringing in $1 million a day, they'd say, oh, come on. No, it's true. That's how much money they were making.